All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with Bob Rose. How you doing tonight, Bob?
Weary, for a variety of reasons, but I'm hanging in there. Happy Halloween Eve.
Yeah, it's getting to be that time. I had yesterday was the 59th anniversary of the debut of It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Can't believe that cartoon will be on 60 years.
I know.
And Halloween's on a Friday, so that's going to be interesting to see. The kids are going to be a little wild on Friday. No school the next day. So Bob, we had another Saints loss against Tampa Bay. The defense didn't lose this game, really, though. If you look at the statistics, the defense really did a good job holding the beat up Buccaneers, but they it was really the offense that lost this game. The offense turning the ball over twice, and then the awful officiating that basically took 2 touchdowns away from Tampa Bay. And the score would have been a lot worse. How do you assess this game?
I mean, it was a curb stomp. The Saints offense was just downright pathetic. It started off promising because Spencer Rattler, as I wrote, hit a couple darts to open the game, and they were moving the ball nicely.
Yeah, then 8 for 8, I think, in the beginning.
Yeah. Then he lost that fumble 2 possessions later through one of the most awful interceptions I have ever seen. I mean, that's reminiscent to the Richard Todd, Billy Joe horrors, Heath Schuler type of interception. And really that you have to hearken back to those Ditka days to recall a Saints offense that has been this consistently bad. And to me, the New Orleans offense has been getting progressively worse each week. The benching, long overdue. But like you said, a defense that frankly has played poorly in the last 3 games. May have arguably had their best outing of the season. I thought the secondary played outstanding. The front 7 very, very good. Against the run and the pass. And like you said, Tampa Bay was beat up. They came in, without Bucky Irving, without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin, without Luke Gadecki, but they still had Tristan Wirfs at left tackle, and Chase Young had a nice outing against him. They still legitimately tried to establish the run, and the Saints held him to 3.1 yards per carry. And Emeka Egbuka is an outstanding wide receiver, and the Saints pretty much shut him down and took away the rest of Baker Mayfield's wideouts, with the exception of a couple plays to Tez Johnson. So, I'm not ready to say that Brandon Staley's unit has turned a corner, because the last time I said that, they got their teeth kicked in for 2 or 3 straight games. But if you're going to take anything promising away from this game, it's definitely on the defensive side.
Well, it was a good matchup for them. The Bucs were determined, because they knew they were crippled for so many injuries, all the players you mentioned. They were determined to reestablish the run, which made sense given that the Saints had given up over 200 yards rushing the week before. They were coming off of a short week from Monday Night Football, traveling. They looked really tired out there offensively. And Chase Young had a very good game. I think he's like at the top of the league in pressures, and he had a strip sack fumble recovery. So he is starting to come around. I'm not saying that, we've finally got unlocked the secret of Chase Young, but at least Sunday he looked like the guy that you expected him to be when you decided to re-sign and pay him that kind of money. He would look really good with somebody on the other side, honestly.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, I thought the highlight of the game was the goal line stand. The Bucs were incredibly unimaginative, just sending guys right in the middle of the line. But it was kind of a gut check for them, a physical thing for them. We're going to go ahead and ram this ball down your throat, and the Saints met that challenge. So that was good to see, because I tell you what, like you said, the past couple of weeks, it looks like the Saints had mentally checked out and were just not enthusiastic about tackling anybody, but they came to play Sunday. The offense really stunk. There's no other way of putting it. And I thought the offensive play calling stunk.
Yeah.
At the risk of sounding like Jim Moore, you know, we couldn't do diddly poo offensively. We didn't run the ball. We didn't try to run the ball. We sucked. And I mean, that was pretty much it. When Tyler Shough came in, I was excited because I thought Rattler kind of ran his course as far as just what he could do for you. But then, you know, when Shough came in, he threw a nice pass to Taysom Hill to start the drive. And then he hits Chris Olave in the hands. And Chris Olave somehow hands the ball off to Asante Samuel. It's like, what the hell, man? Was Asante Samuel Jr.? Is that who it is?
Winfield Jr.
Yeah, Antoine Winfield Jr. I knew it was somebody's a famous cornerback's kid. I just couldn't think of which one it was. And then when I said Asante Samuel, I'm like, no, that's not him. Yeah, Antoine Winfield Jr. You know, and it was that kind of game. What you call it? Juwan Johnson's wide open for a nice gain. He drops the ball. You know, Shaheed runs a stop and go, beats his man like a drum, because that guy looked like he had no idea they were even going to try a pass like that. He's got the speed, and somehow the ball gets overthrown because he slowed up. You know, like he was surprised the ball was actually coming. It was that kind of game. You know, and I think when they decided to start Shough, they kind of looked at the film and said, look, we've had a lot of opportunities to do stuff, and we're just not getting them. It's not all on the quarterback, but we're not getting these opportunities to pan out. What do we need to do to get this offense moving? Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, and I'll go one step further, and I've mentioned this several times. We all thought, and well, any of us with working brain cells anyway, just felt like we were going to see both quarterbacks play significantly this year.
Yeah,
mainly because of this, folks. The Saints are going to have a draft choice near the top of the first round, if not at the top of the first round.
We got it right now.
Yeah, right. And you have two young quarterbacks on your roster. I know many of you think that neither are the answer. Maybe you're right, but you have to find out. I think we've seen enough from Spencer Rattler to determine, okay, he's not the guy. Agree with you, Alan. It's not all on him. This dysfunctional crap is spread pretty evenly around right now.
Yeah.
But you haven't seen Tyler Shough in any game action. Now, I know more than a handful of y'all have been saying, well, they shouldn't have drafted him, and I wouldn't have drafted him, and he was a fifth-round draft choice at best. Well, guess what? If the Saints didn't take him in the second round, someone else would have. Kellen Moore, as I've said, it feels like hundreds of times, Kellen Moore decided Tyler Shough is the quarterback he wants for his system. Well, he got him. Now you have to find out if Shough can play and be the quarterback for that system. If he's not, then you draft a quarterback, with your first pick. If he is, then okay, at least you have that need checked off, or at least if you think he is. Either way, you have to find out. I personally wouldn't have thrown him to the Wolves against the Rams on the road.
Yeah.
But once you made that decision to pull Rattler in the middle of a game, you almost pigeonholed yourself into starting Shough for the next week. And I don't think if Shough plays poorly and the Saints play poorly on the road, I don't think Moore is going to go right back to Rattler. I think he'd be an idiot for doing so. So yeah, I mean, when the same thing isn't working over and over and over again, you have to make a change. And this isn't just making a change for the sake of making change. You're trying to get a spark, but you also have to see what you have in your rookie quarterback. And you have to do it before, I mean, obviously the Saints aren't going to the playoffs, but most of these players haven't checked out yet. Mentally or emotionally, they're both, most of them are still playing pretty hard, from week to week. So, as long as you still have that mentality inside your locker room, this is when you do have to play the young players, not just Shough. I've been calling for Stutzman, was calling for Riley before we finally got him. Need to see more out of Devin Neal, so on and so forth. But it starts at quarterback, because the Saints have a quarterback problem. You need to see if you can solve it with the guys on the roster.
And here's the thing, too. We've got Banks starting, okay? Shough gets the start this week. That's your second-round pick. Your third-round picks. Brockton got hurt. He's out for the year, but he was playing. Riley is now starting. Sanker is starting. We're seeing Stutzman out more and more in different alignments on defense. He is rotating in heavily. Stallbird's even out there. Stallbird came in.
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
He came in on a nice blitz. Neal is out there. In fact, Neal was out there most of the time when they were in passing formation, because he was doing such a great job on blitz pickup. We've seen the tight end, I can never say his name, but Mandavi or something like that, that number 80, we have seen him out there several times. So almost every pick that you have made has played this season. Why is Shough the exception? Why should he be the exception to this? It's an evaluation time. It's time for him to look at this entire class and see how many of these guys can contribute. These are all the things that we've been begging the Saints to do for at least 5 years since Drew Brees retired. You need to start looking at these young players. Stop relying on Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara to constantly bail you out, because these guys are getting to the end of their careers. You need to see these young guys. Well, this is you're 1-7 or 1-8. I think you're 1-7. You're 1-7. You're not going to the playoffs. You have the number 1 overall pick if the season ended today. We still play the Jets and the Dolphins and the Titans. 3 teams that are all right there with us at the the top 5 picks. So it's time to see all these guys out there and see what you're going to do with this. I agree with you. Barring injury, I think Rattler is finished as a starter for the Saints. Not because he lost the job, but because this is a team in transition that most of the guys that are out there playing, that have been there for several years, are not going to be on this team much longer. And I'm talking about like Trevor Penning and maybe Cesar Ruiz, Cam Jordan, Demario, Taysom will probably all get the golden parachute contract to go ahead and retire. And we'll pay you X amount. We'll just put everything off in the ghost years after you're gone. So, you're going to see a big change in the guard over the next years. Well, you need to see who you have on the roster right now that you can rely on, and who do you need to replace? And we've talked about it all season, all off season. All these guys, a lot of these guys need to replace. We need a tight end. We need
Mm-hmm.
receivers who can catch the ball and not hand them off as interceptions. We need guards that can open up running lanes. We need a running back who can run between the tackles and get positive yardage, like what we saw from Bucky Irving and all these guys from Tampa. You know, there's a lot of things that we need. And the biggest question that we have right now is who is going to be your quarterback for 2026 onward?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be Tyler Shough? Or is it going to be Spencer Rattler for some reason later on? Because you figure out that Shough isn't the guy, and there's nobody in the draft you really like. All those questions need to be answered. So this is the time to answer it, because this is your mulligan season. This is your season where we're not expecting much out of you. So take the losses, know that you're building something, but next year you cannot go 1-16 or 2-15 or whatever you're going to end up with as your final record. I'm intrigued by the idea of Shough playing the Rams. I'm not expecting to win, but I'm intrigued by how is he going to handle that. You know, on the road, granted, Los Angeles is not exactly Arrowhead, Baltimore,
Mile High.
It's not a loud. Yeah, it's Seattle. It's not a loud home stadium. It's a stadium that it's filled most of the time with opposing fans. You know, so it's not. It's a tough team to play, but it's not like you have to deal with noise and a tough team to play. You're not going to go play Detroit. You're playing you're playing a good team in the Rams, but it'll be a good challenge for him.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, and you know, this is a Rams team that has 26 sacks, 58 quarterback hits. You know, so you know they're a team that is going to pressure your quarterback. You know, so again, you know, you're throwing Shough right into the fire. You know, how does he handle that pressure? Because the last 2 weeks, and it was so blatantly obvious against the Buccaneers and the Bears in particular. You know, blitz Spencer Rattler. Crowd the receivers because they're not going to go deep on you, and blitz the shit out of Spencer Rattler. Yeah, well, they're gonna do that same thing to Shough because that's the book on how to deal with rookie quarterbacks. How does he respond to it? You know, and I'm like you. I'm very interested to see how do Shough's teammates respond to him. Going to be equally interested to see, because this is the kind of situation when you're a 1-7 team and you make a quarterback change to an inexperienced rookie. This is the kind of situation where some veterans they tend to check out on you. Yeah. You know, Ruiz, Penning, Olave, Jawan, even Alvin. Are they going to continue to give it their all? You know, as pathetic as that all has been, you know, through this season so far, or are they just going to check out? Because guess what? If they check out, you also have some other answers as far as, you know, pre-off-season moves. And, you know, all right, I don't want this guy on my roster for 2026 because they didn't even bother trying to respond to adversity. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. So, you know, yeah, you have some underlying questions too that need answered.
Absolutely, because the eye in the sky does not lie, and they're going to be looking at all that film when they're evaluating players. Because I think this year, you know, we only have 5 draft picks, and you know, maybe we're going to see if by next Tuesday they do make some moves and try and trade some assets. They're not going to get a whole heck of a lot for these guys,
No.
Because the reason why you want to get rid of these guys is the same reason why these teams aren't that excited about drafting trading for them. Right. They're not going to give up expensive assets, meaning day 1, day 2 picks for guys that may be a 1-year rental, or they're old, or they're guys that have been struggling with your team, and the struggles are on them, not on their teammates. I'm looking at you, Chris Olave.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, it's hard to do that. So in this case, you're going to be if you're going to ship off assets, you're doing it with an eye to the future, and you're doing it from the standpoint of these are guys I don't want to build my team around. I want to build my team around different personalities. So, yeah, I'm catching these things as they pop up. Yeah, you're wondering if he's wondering. Hemisphere is wondering if Shough is going to get the same kind of support that Rattler didn't get. It's hard to say because here I'm going to tell you about Wes Chandler. One of the knocks on Wes Chandler was that if you didn't get him the ball early, he kind of mentally checked out a bit in the game. Mm-hmm. It's not that he wasn't trying, he just wasn't into it. In other words, he didn't put on those extra moves, that little burst of speed to get the ball. And I think Rashid Shaheed is kind of guilty of that too. That he kind of jogs through his routes and doesn't really go all out. And compare that to, say, Marcus Colston, Lance Moore, even Devery Henderson, who did go out full every time. And maybe it was because those guys knew from practice during the week that ball ain't coming to me anyway. So I'm not going to go out there and just really push it to get deep, because that ball's not coming to me. Maybe with Shough throwing the ball deeper, maybe with some more accuracy, guys are going to be more dialed in. So that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it's a possibility just because the kind of game that Rattler played was all check down. So receivers weren't seeing the ball. Let's see if Valet gets hit more often or gets targeted more often. Brandon Cooks got 2 passes thrown to him in one game. That hasn't happened since he's been here. It hadn't been that way since before the Rams game in 2016 when he said open mouths don't get fed. Or closed mouths don't get fed. So, maybe that gets these guys kind of paying attention a little bit more. Hey, this guy may start throwing the ball to me more if I start looking like I'm doing stuff. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. The vets on this team have failed the Saints.
100%.
I've been very disappointed with the leadership of this team from these veteran players. And that's something else that they're looking at hard, trying to decide if these guys are going to be the guys I'm going to stick with for this team. I remember Alvin Kamara a couple years ago saying, too many people getting comfortable losing, and that's not what I'm into. Well, it seems like we have that mentality over here. Too many people are comfortable with losing. Because for whatever reason, this coaching staff isn't holding them accountable. I mean, do you see that on your side, Bob?
No. Well, not as much as with Dennis Allen and his staff. Now, don't get me wrong. This coaching staff has major issues, major red flags that I see. The majority of it is in game. The majority of it is game plan, play calling, lack of in-game adjustments, and clock management. So pretty much all there is to coaching is the problem I have with the staff. But and I've seen a lot of comments over the last couple of days about wanting to, Sean Payton got rid of half the roster, from between his arrival in 2006 and the 2019. Well, that's 3 years, guys.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore's in his first, and you can't realistically in this salary cap era, with the way a lot of these veterans, Ruiz is a great example, with the way a lot of their contracts were structured, you just can't outright cut them. You may want to, but you just can't outright cut them because you have a huge hole salary wise without the money left to fill it. You still have to field a football team, no matter how good or bad it is. That, and folks, stop trying to make Kellen Moore or Dennis Allen or anybody else into Sean Payton. Sean Payton is Sean Payton. For better or for worse. Let Kellen Moore be Kellen Moore. I'm not giving up on him yet. I'm souring on him some. Mainly from an offensive standpoint, offensive design standpoint. Just too many things don't make sense. But also, folks, these are professional football players. Bill Parcells once famously said, "You're an NFL player. If I have to get you motivated to play a game that you're getting paid handsomely to play, you better get on with your life's work." So this isn't JV or even high school. Football we're talking about here, folks. These are guys that are doing this for a living, for theirs and their family's livelihood. This motivation and this will to succeed and this self-accountability is just that. It has to come from self first. And that's why I agree with you, Alan, and what you're saying. And most players will say this too. Most former players that we've gotten to know, that the leadership in your locker room from a player, it has a lot more meaning coming from a player, from the leaders in your locker room, than from the coaches. That's not to say the coaches aren't responsible for it, but it has to come from A, yourself, and B, your peers. And it's coming from neither right now.
And I agree. Excuse me. I agree with that totally, because it seems like, I don't know how to put this right. It seems like the younger players know the older players have one foot out the door, and you lead by example out there. And I'm not going to say Demario Davis fits in that category, but some of the guys they're looking at as, why I got to listen to this guy? He's old. He doesn't really contribute that much. He's not doing very much out there. So that's the challenge he has. There have to be new voices in the locker room that hold people accountable. And that's the other dynamic when people say, well, we need to get rid of Cam because he's old. We need to get rid of DeMario. We need to get rid of Alvin. We need to get rid of Taysom. Okay, you do that. Now you just created a huge vacuum in your locker room as far as leadership. Who are going to be your leaders in that team? Who is going to step up and speak up? We don't know who those people are.
Right. Olave.
Yeah.
Jawan. I mean, they certainly aren't doing it by example.
No. So who's going to be those guys that are going to say what they need, what needs to be said on that team? That's the biggest problem you have. So, you going, and I think the team knows this too. So, in the front office and the coaching staff kind of knows this too. So I think that's why you're seeing so many rookies playing right now, and they're looking for players who were leaders in their locker rooms in college. So that Stutzman will become a vocal leader in the locker room. So a guy like Banks will be a vocal leader in the locker room. So a guy like maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry or Riley or even Sanker become spokesman in the locker room, or voices in the locker room.
Yep.
But it's going to take time, and you got to find that quarterback who can command that.
Oh yeah.
Drew Brees had it. Bobby Hebert, as much as I didn't like him playing, Bobby
teammates
Hebert
loved
had
him.
It. Huh? Yeah.
Teammates loved him. And
Absolutely.
It's interesting too what you said about Sanker, Stutzman, McKinstry, I think Brockton. He's hurt. They were all team captains. So I think that Banks was a team cat. I think that that's very significant, and we mentioned it. It was either you or Brendan mentioned it later in our draft podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Once the Saints draft picks, once it started to become clear a couple of the things that they had in common, that was number one on the list that you guys pointed out. And I think that that's significant. Again, I'm going to go back to high school. As a high school coach, I remember very early on, when I stepped in, there were some seniors, and I won't mention any names, but there were some seniors that were just toxic. Mm-hmm. And I saw potential in freshmen and sophomores that I had, but you can't make someone be a leader. You can't just announce to your team so and so is going to be a leader. That kind of thing usually takes care of itself. So what I basically decided to do was take the lumps that first year. While I steered my more impressionable players away from the toxicity, knowing that I only had to put up with it 1 year. And I would even tell a couple of these younger players, I'm like, this is your team next year. I want you to watch this. I did it in privately as much as I could. I want you to watch this and decide if this is the kind of team you want to be in charge of next year. And that's luckily for me. Now I was fortunate to coach some incredibly talented individuals too, but once those said seniors were gone, you just felt a whole different atmosphere as soon as we got into our off-season workouts. Now, maybe that happens with the Saints, maybe it doesn't. But one of the commonalities, to the draft picks in Kellen Moore's first draft was, the leadership. Almost all of them, I think, played at least 4 years of college ball. And were team captains. I think a couple of them multiple years. So maybe there's something to be said for that, and maybe that's kind of the mentality right now.
Well, so you need talented players, and Hemisphere is right. You need a lot of missed draft picks. Kicking the can down the road from the standpoint of trying to get that ring that you did not get in 2018. Because here we're going to Rams week, and we'll talk more about the Rams in a minute, but we joke it with the Falcons about 28-3 and how that totally wrecked their franchise. In many ways, the no call wrecked the Saints franchise, because instead of going to the Super Bowl in 2018 like we should have, probably winning that game against the Patriots, so Drew Brees can retire with a ring. We now can start moving forward to getting a new quarterback in 2019, 2020 with a Lombardi trophy in the background. Cam gets his ring. Alvin gets his ring. So those are Hall of Fame shoe-ins. Sean has 2 rings. Now we can start rebuilding the team, but instead we had to try and go back in 2019 and 2020, try and go back again. Well, what happened in 2020, the COVID year, and then the cap issues started, and the drafting really went downhill. And started in 2018 because you were going all in for one more Super Bowl run. So, that really set up so much of that thing. So like you're saying here, Hemisphere, the missed drafts, the kicking the can down the road, all these things now catch up because you keep thinking, I've got this core, I've got to make one more run. There's got to be one more run. We have to finish the job we couldn't finish in 2018. Whereas if you win the ring in 2018, the pressure's off. Mm-hmm. Now you can start talking about a rebuild because you've got that championship, So the fans aren't like, hey, man, 15 years, man, come on. Where's that ring? It's been 15 years since the last one. You don't have that pressure on you. So And I think that is showing up and why it took them so long to find, and they've kind of been steered into it by accident. Um, it's taken them so long to acknowledge that they need to rebuild this team. And it goes back to the leadership issue.
Yeah.
We now have been relying on these old veterans that we've been bringing in to be our leaders. Well, these guys are now retiring. And because we miss all these draft picks, where do these new leaders come from? And I think they finally have made that acknowledgement with this draft class. Okay. Hemisphere is saying, I get Mickey Loomis isn't going anywhere, but my question is, when will we start looking at ownership to step in and make big changes up top on the team? Bob, you want to take this one?
Hemisphere is not going to happen. Gale is not the kind of owner that Tom Benson was, when Tom was healthy. Gale likes her social appearances. She likes to be liked. Mickey Loomis might as well have the last name Benson because they're family. They have to. Mickey and Gale have to come to the collective decision, the combined decision. We've run our course with this front office structure. Mickey, I need to step aside. Gale isn't going to say, at least the Gale Benson we know, or we think we know, Gale is not going to say, Mickey, it's time. It's time. She will probably say, Mick, do you think it's time? And the Mickey Loomis we know will say, no, I can do this. It's the boxer that wants the one last fight. I still got this. I can do this. And if he says that, she's going to believe him because why wouldn't she? He's family. So if you're waiting for Gale Benson to step in, I don't see that happening.
So here's my take. If I'm Gale Benson, I didn't build shit. I didn't build anything. I married into this organization, and I trusted Tom. And Tom put Mickey in charge of the will. He is going to be the executor of the estate. His job is to make sure that this team, both franchises, the Pelicans and the Saints, get sold to local ownership or someone who's committed to keep them in New Orleans. So I'm not rocking that boat. Now, can there be a conversation where Mickey basically becomes a figurehead, where he becomes, I don't know, chief executive officer of the New Orleans Saints? They restructure the team. Where he's no longer the GM day to day. He is now this job he gets paid well, but no real responsibilities whatsoever. That can happen. That's going to be up to Mickey, though. And I think Mickey's ego is such that his attitude is, I'm going to do that. I will go and do that after I rebuild this team one more time. I've built it 3 times. I'm going to build it one more time. And the 3 times he built it, with Randy Mueller in 2000, 2006, 2017. He's looking at that as his 3 builds. Okay. I'm going to rebuild it one more time. And if you don't want to give him the 2001, you want to put that on Randy Mueller, that's fine. He still will look at it saying, I built the 2016 with Sean. I built the 2017 team with Sean. I made a mistake by hiring Dennis Allen. Sean left us in 2021, so I'm in year 3 of this, or year 4. But I've got Kellen Moore, and I want to build a team with Kellen Moore. And once I build a team that's back in the playoffs and competing for titles, then I'll retire. That's a hell of a gamble. And a lot of people are just like, no, man, you can't do that. You can't.
But the way you just put it, and this is exactly why I agree. Yeah, that nobody is going to. Gail doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to make that kind of tough decision. Mickey's ego, and the resume.
Mm-hmm.
The resume will back him up, or at least in his mind backs him up. Now, the one constant in those rebuilds was Sean Payton, and the fact that you got Drew Brees in 2006, and you had Drew Brees in 2017. Mickey's overlooking that though, because that's what the ego will force you to do.
Absolutely.
Was that I was just as big a part of that as Sean and Drew. Now we as outsiders can say no, because again, the two of the three heads that were responsible for this are now gone.
Yeah.
And the only head remaining is the one on the chopping block. Mickey ain't going to see it that way, though. There's no way in hell Mickey can see it that way.
No, because he sees, hey, I'm the one who brought Sean in here. Hey, I'm the one who signed Drew,
Right.
I just need to find the right coach. And I think I did with Kellen Moore, but he also thought he did it with Dennis Allen. Right. But I think I did with Kellen Moore. Now I need to find the right quarterback. And if I get the right quarterback and the right head coach, that makes my job that much easier, because I'm going to get the players that these guys want to be successful, because that's his business model. That's his philosophy. My job is to, if you want to quote Jerry Maguire, help me help you. I'm going to make you successful because I brought you two in here to build this successful team. My job then is facilitated to get you the players you need to get to that point. Yep. And I'll be honest with you, with Gail, if you fire Mickey Loomis tomorrow, she's going to try and find another Mickey Loomis.
Yes.
She's not going to go out there and go get a Howie Roseman. She's not going to go out there and get somebody who sees his job or her job as GM to basically run the show. And the head coach listens to what I say. She's not going to get that kind of person. And that's kind of what people want, or they say they want.
Well, and guess what? If Gail Benson were to make that kind of decision, she would need a football person, man or woman, a football person. Yeah. Well, guess who her football person is?
Yeah.
It's Mickey Loomis.
Right.
And do you remember? I don't know how big an NBA fan, especially NBA historian, you are. But I mean, I know you remember the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls.
Oh, sure.
Well, I mean, that thing, it started to fall apart, not because the players got old. They were aging, but they were still winning. Not because the coach got stale. It was Jerry Krause, the general manager.
Yeah.
Ego. Jerry Krause didn't feel like he was getting the same credit that Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen was getting. And it didn't help that those players and coaches were blatantly respecting Krause too. Yeah. So when all their contracts came up, right in the middle of a second three-peat, Krause was saying during that season, these guys, it doesn't matter win, lose, or draw. These guys aren't going to be back. They just aren't. I built this team. I built them. And I'm going to get rid of them, and I'm going to do it again. Well, I mean, it didn't work out that way, but the reason for the collapse, the eventual collapse of the Bulls, was not age or anything else, not even greed, from the players. It was the GM. Ego. Mickey Loomis has that same kind of ego. I built this in 2006. I built it in 2017. I'll do it again. Yeah.
Well, you get to the point where you think that, my system will work because it's worked before. And you don't think to yourself, it worked because of a cosmic accident. And I don't mean that to be an insult to Sean Payton and Drew Brees, but it was a cosmic accident that the Miami Dolphins rejected or failed Drew Brees' physical. Because Drew was going over there. Miami was the choice, and they failed the physical.
It was a cosmic accident that the Green Bay Packers chose Mike McCarthy over. Was it McCarthy over Sean Payton? Yeah,
in 2006. In 2017, we could have easily have gotten Reuben Foster instead of Ryan Ramczyk in that draft class. Now, we also could have gotten Patrick Mahomes instead of Marshawn Lattimore. So, it's a give and take on this. But the draft fell just right. We traded Brandon Cooks to get that extra first-round pick. What are the odds that you could go trade a guy for a first-round pick today? Probably not very good, because people value those things. Like my grandfather used to say, their first communion nickel. So, they just don't trade that kind of stuff unless they think they can really get something for it. So, there's all kinds of things involved in it. So, if your ego thinks you can do it, you can, but you're going to need a lot of coincidences to fall your way.
And the ego will let you think, will let you see moves like I traded Brandon Cooks for Ryan Ramczyk, and not let you see 3 years earlier I traded Jimmy Graham for Stephon Anthony.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I left this question up because I do want to address this since we were talking about the NBA. I asked this because when Mr. B got the basketball team, the Saints have gone down because ownership is juggling both teams. That's not exactly accurate because he got the basketball team in 2016. 2017, we had the great draft. So, but I do want to mention that the Hornets, when they became the Pelicans, the Hornets were a playoff team.
Yes.
And when they first became the Pelicans, that was probably the most successful run they had with Chris Paul and so forth. Now, I'm not a Hornets Pelicans fan. I really don't pay much attention. My kids do, but I don't pay much attention to the NBA or basketball in general because, quite honestly, LeBron James has just really turned me off to the NBA. I can't stand LeBron James, and this idea of building super teams really turns me off to the NBA, so I don't watch it.
But that, and I don't really like the superstars being allowed to take 7 steps.
But that too. That pisses me off to no end. I think that's a load of crap. That and the guy's walking down court holding the ball basically, then starts dribbling, the double dribbling, the palming, all that stuff just pisses me off. So I don't need that stress anymore in my life.
No, we got enough with the Saints. I don't need to compound my stress.
And I sound like old man yelling at the clouds about that because they're like, "What do you mean? How that's just the way they play today." Well, I'm like, they play it wrong, and stars can't foul out either, which I think is a load of crap too. But that's beside the point. My point with the Pelicans is, how we were talking about having a football man in charge. I don't think they could ever find a basketball man in charge to run the draft, hire the coach, run the team. And I think that's part of the problem because ownership and the people around it aren't really basketball players or basketball men.
No,
there's no Jerry Krause in there.
Right. And Tom Benson, again, very famously said in his press conference when he took over the operations of the Saints back in 85 or 86, he admitted, he's like, I don't know anything about football. I'm going to hire football guys to make the football decisions. So to your point, when he took over and when he had the opportunity to take over operations of the Pelicans, he could not do that same thing.
There was no Jim
Finks. Could with the Saints. There was no Jim Finks. Who brought in Jim Mora, who took advantage of the collapse of the USFL. Again, what you called before a cosmic accident.
Cosmic accidents.
It was the perfect storm, lightning in a bottle, whatever analogy you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened.
Yeah. And so, I agree with you. I think that their attention sometimes is split to the detriment of both franchises, because I don't think people pay attention to the Pelicans at all right now. They won't until after December. Mm-hmm. And that's half the season already. Their season starts in late, end of October, mid-October, so, and goes on to June. But the Pelican season is usually over by April, so I mean, but yeah, that's part of the problem. They're just not focused on that sport. They really need somebody who is more of an NBA kind of guy to just be the president and organize that side of the office.
And they have Joe Dumars now, so
yeah,
maybe Dumars gets it done, but you got to, just like with Kellen Moore, right?
Yeah, he's a Loomis friend, so yeah, and they still think they should fire Willie Green. So yeah, this has become a Pelicans podcast all of a sudden, but
it's spun way. Sean would be proud of us. It's spun way out of control.
Absolutely, but it is a legitimate conversation to have, because you've got people who are screaming about the Saints, and they look at the Pelicans too, and they're like, "Well, Gail Benson's on top of this. Two organizations that are falling apart. She needs to address this," and she does, but she's not the kind of person to do this. And for those of you like, okay, well, then it's time for Gail to sell. That's a dangerous game to play. You're playing Russian roulette, because yes, Todd Graves could be a buyer, but it could also be some friggin' hedge fund trustee baby up in New York or in California who buys the damn team, and maybe somebody wants to move the Pelicans up to Seattle to bring back the Supersonics, and you're going to have a guy who's only going to want to be there for a couple of years until the lease runs out. They may want to move the Saints to San Diego. You don't know. So it's a Russian roulette game. So I'm going to stick with, this is the reality of Gail Benson's the owner. How can Gail fix this? These are the things that Gail needs to do. Mickey's not going anywhere, so how can Mickey fix this? This is what Mickey needs to do. That's the only way I can react to these things now, because everything else is just wishing. I mean, for 20 years, I wished John Meekum would go away, and he finally did. But we went through a scare for a minute that the Saints were going to go to Jacksonville. All right. So, of course, we went way off track, but the Rams this week. Before we go to that, we talked a little bit last week at the very end about possible trades. The trade deadline is a week from today. Do you see the Saints still making any moves now that they've moved Tyler Shough to starter?
Yeah, I do. I still think one of the wide receivers go. I know all the reports are saying the Saints have no interest in trading Olave, that they're trying to work towards a long-term contract extension. I keep coming back with, we talked about all the bad decisions that's led to where we are now.
Yeah.
Whatever my opinion is worth, I think signing Olave to a long-term contract extension would be another of those bad type of decisions.
Yeah.
Unless Olave is saying behind closed doors, hey, I don't want to be paid. I don't expect the contract of a featured wideout, a $25 to $30 million a year contract, even a $20 million. I'm content with a long-term extension that pays me about $18 to $20 million a year with incentives, max. Unless Olave is saying that, and I highly doubt he is.
Yeah.
He wants to be paid like a number one wideout. So if you pay him as a number one wideout, then again, add this to the steaming heap of bad decisions.
Yeah.
So I still think Chris Olave gets moved for a late second ish, early third round, or round three plus round four pick. I think Chris Olave is the player on your roster that would fetch the biggest return. If they don't move Olave, then I expect I don't think they'll move both. But if they don't move Olave, if they don't get an offer that they like, then I think that they move Shaheed. I think they move Pete Werner for a bag of Pez. I think that that's why we're seeing this Stutzman Stallberg combination more and more. And guys, don't be surprised. We haven't heard his name a lot, except from me. Do not be surprised if they move Carl Granderson, because I think that they could get a late day 2 pick for him too, because everybody wants a pass rusher. So I think Granderson and Olave are the 2 biggest names that I am watching for the Saints.
What about Alontae Taylor? I've been seeing his name popping up in a few things, and they do have to make a decision whether to pay him or not.
They do.
His contract expires, I think, after the end of this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there's any interest in moving Alontae Taylor?
Yeah, I think that they could get something for Alontae because of all the teams that want a wide receiver, for depth and big plays that would want an Olave or a Shaheed. There's the same number of teams that want a defensive back to stop those receivers, and I like Alontae Taylor a lot.
I do too,
but I don't think Brandon Staley knows how to use him. You're not going to convert him to a full-time safety because you have Reed, who's not been playing well, but we know can play well. And you have Sanker, who is playing well and is one of your future cornerstones. I think they're in a similar situation to last year when coming into free agency, you had Chase Young, and Paulson Adebo with expiring contracts. You made the decision, a realization that you could only pay one. You chose to pay Young over Adebo. You're looking at that same kind of scenario. Shaheed will be a free agent. Alontae will be a free agent. Chris Olave's will be in his 5th year option. So a massively escalated contract. So you have to make a decision. Are we going to keep any of these guys? It cannot be all 3, probably can't even be 2. So let's move them and see what you can get. So, yeah, I very much think Alontae Taylor is on the table too.
Yeah, and I think it's not so much for Alontae Taylor. They don't want him. They don't like him. I think they like him a lot. And I do think they've got a vision for him. It's going to be different than what Dennis Allen had for him. But at the same time, their attitude is we need picks, and we need a lot of picks in the top 100. So if we have players that they are interested in that will give us top 100 level picks, and I'm talking about 3rd rounders, 2nd rounders. I mean, they'd love to get a 1st rounder for somebody, but I don't think there's anybody in this roster who's worth a 1st round pick. Outside of maybe the 2 tackles,
right?
Which you're not going to move those, obviously. But yeah, I mean, even had a rumor out today that, well, now that Rattler's been benched, do the Saints trade Rattler? Well, that's not going to happen. The Vikings aren't going to trade
for why,
right? Somebody said, "What if you can get a 4th for him?" I said, "I go dance in the streets if we got a 4th for Rattler, because that means we got something higher than what we paid for to draft him." And I will say that about almost anybody. You get anything for, Shaheed was an undrafted free agent. You get a day 2 pick or early day 3 pick for Shaheed. That's a win because you got him for nothing. Basically, he's an undrafted free agent. Jimmy Graham, you got a 1st round pick for him. He was a 3rd round pick. So, that's a win. I hated the trade. I think it was a bad trade, but the point is you got a 1st round pick for him because of his production. Yeah, I know he was. I saw that. I heard that too. Jonathan Dillon was talking up Pete Werner. Vilma is, especially when he does our games, it's tough on him because he
It
wants to
is.
be a homer, but then he is going to kind of parrot the company or the overall line. He's going to say certain things about the Saints roster that everyone else is parroting. That way he looks objective.
Hmm.
But there were a couple times when you could kind of hear him suck in his mouth, the air a little bit, some of the plays that were going on,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's tough. Um, yeah, I don't think that Chemisphere wrote earlier, or he doesn't think Kellen Moore knows how to use it, Alvin Kamara. I don't think he feels like he can use him the way he wants to. And this is the last thing I wanted to talk about this evening before we mention um, the Bayou Blitz and the rest. Kellen Moore, you had said earlier, you're questioning his play calling, questioning his clock management, questioning a lot of decisions he's making. He abandoned the run. Devin Neal got 0 carries Sunday. I think Sunday he got the virus that Bill Parcells used to talk about and Sean Payton
Hmm.
used to warn about. He felt like he needed a big play to get back into the game, and he kept calling those shots, and they weren't coming. They weren't hitting them. And I think that's what hurt Devin Neal getting carries. And I think that hurts Alvin Kamara because he feels like he has to run Alvin Kamara. He can't put him in as a wide receiver. He's done it a couple of times, but he's not throwing to him in those pass routes.
Right.
Because I think he feels a little hamstrung by the limitations that Spencer Rattler had as a starting quarterback. And I'm not saying Tyler Shuck's not going to have limitations or the same limitations. I'm just saying that you look at what these guys did in practice all week and you're going, well, that shit didn't work and that didn't work. And I can't run that because they screw that up. I got to run these basic plays and pray to God that Penny doesn't hold or someone jumps off sides or somebody doesn't learns to stop when we put them in motion like they've never run a motion play before. We snap the ball in time. I'm going through all these things going, I got to run the most basic damn offense in the world because these assholes can't run run a simple off tackle play without somebody screwing up. I feel that's kind of how I look at sometimes with Kellen Moore. Look at his play sheet because I can see the frustration in his face.
Yeah.
He's looking at his play card going, I have no idea what I can call because these people are too freaking stupid to run the basic plays that I'm giving them. I mean, am I wrong?
No.
I mean, that's the way I look at things sometimes.
And I mean, I'm vilifying Kellen Moore because I have seen Kamara lined up at wide receiver, and I'm like, okay, here it comes. Because every Pete Carmichael, Clint Kubiak, they all forgot what Alvin Kamara could do as a receiver, and and maybe Kellen Moore will remember. Well, it hasn't gotten there yet. Now, part of the reason is they haven't found a legitimate backfield complement. When you think Kendre Miller is it, he breaks another appendage. It's that kind of frustration. Or like you said, you feel like you get on a roll and Penning jumps off sides or gets flagged for holding, or Ruiz gives someone a written invitation to the to your backfield, and you end up with a loss of 5 or loss of 7, and you're behind the sticks. You're behind the sticks with a limited quarterback and no big-bodied pass catchers, shit like that. So it is absolutely a snowball effect, and you tend to, when your choice becomes, do I run a play that's going to lose me 10 yards, or do I run a play that's going to gain me 4 even though I need 10? You're going to at least run the play that gains you 4 yards. And I know that's idiotic thinking, but that's also the reality of what Kellen Moore stares in the face of, the abyss of, every single week.
Yeah, I mean, because what do we see out of this team? We see them start running up tempo stuff, And when they run up tempo, it seems like they start getting a rhythm of what they need to do. And as long as nobody makes a mistake, as long as
Mm-hmm.
they don't give up a sack, as long as they don't have a penalty, man, they start moving the ball like you expect them to. He's
Yeah.
getting the ball out quick. They're making positive plays. We're getting down the field. It takes 14 to 17 friggin' plays to go 40 yards, but you're still getting
I
down
don't
the field.
care. Right.
Yeah, you're getting downfield, but it's always we're going to make that one mistake right in the red zone. Somebody's going to drop a pass. Somebody's going to get tackled for a loss. Somebody's going to commit a holding penalty on a scoring play. Something
Mm-hmm.
like that will happen. So going back to the beginning of the show, maybe shifting the quarterback with a different tempo to his voice. Maybe they won't snap the ball while Shaheed's still in motion or Olave hasn't set yet, and we won't get the illegal shift penalty. Maybe he gets the ball out quicker, because that was one thing I saw Shough did. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
noticed it. That ball came out pretty fast and was getting downfield pretty
Yep.
fast.
Yep.
I'm trying not to throw Rattler under the bus, but I kind of am, because I just feel like the ball looked better coming out of Shough's hand on deeper routes, So maybe that'll help. I don't know, but I'm anxious to find out.
Yeah, and you have to find out. They have to find out.
Yeah. You're exactly right, Hemisphere. The wall comes up and they can't score touchdowns. And it's usually the wall caused by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They do stupid shit at that point of the field. A holding call, negating a touchdown. Somebody drops a pass. Somebody's not even looking for the pass. We try and run a draw and there's a loss of 5. That kind of stuff. All that stuff happens. And we sitting there going, oh my God, how many times is Kellen Moore going to call Kamara up the middle? I don't know. So that's the things I think we can watch for, in this Rams game. That's the stuff I'm going to be looking for.
Yeah.
I know Puka Nacua is going to set the probably break Flipper Anderson's single game record. It's 339 yards, in case you want to know. But Puka Nacua could probably break Flipper Anderson's record that night, Sunday.
Man, I don't know. Kool-Aid and Quincy are playing pretty well. I'm going to be looking forward to that matchup too.
I'll tell you what. We haven't talked enough about Kool-Aid. He really impressed me with those 2 pass breakups on that goal line. They got it on the third try, but they went at him twice, and he knocked it down twice. Now, the cynic will say he should have intercepted one of them. Yeah, probably so, but I mean, he was in position to knock the ball down and did not give up the easy score.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the small victories while I can, because this is a second-year player. And I tell you what, Quincy Riley, they don't throw at him. What does that tell you? That they target Kool-Aid McKinstry more than they target Quincy Riley. We saw last year, they went at Adebo all the time.
Yep.
Because they knew he was a penalty machine. So they're getting a reputation for being solid players. And I like this. So, yeah, I expect them to lose. It'll probably be another close game. Famous last words. But it'll probably be another close game. But I think I'm just curious to see if the Saints can score more than 20 points.
Yeah, because I mean, in Spencer Rattler's 15 games as quarterback, 14 as starter, the Saints scored over 20 offensive points 2 times. So yeah, I mean, they average
that way.
No, you average 13.8 points with a defense that was abysmal last year and rebuilding this year.
Yeah.
What's that a recipe for? 1-7.
Right. They average about 10 points a game in the first half. And because of this past game, I think they're now down to just about 7 points in the second half. You can't win. You cannot. Even the Dome Patrol, knew that 20 points was the magic number for them. If
Mm-hmm.
their offense could score more than 20 points, they could win a game. You know, most games, not with the 49ers, but most games
Right.
they could win with a 20. The offense just scoring 20 points. You got to score 20 to 24 points.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, what do you have coming up on the Bayou Blitz this week?
I mean, more Shough analysis. What his attributes bring, to the New Orleans offense. What kind of things might we see different? What kind of things might we see the same? More trade rumors, and breaking down the Rams a little bit. What to expect from the Rams team. That frankly, and this historically, Los Angeles has been a house of horrors. For the Saints.
Recently, yes.
What kind of we keep talking about bounce back. How is the team? How are the coaches going to respond? Well, this is another big question for them. And if the Saints are going to be a better team in December than they were in September, this is one of those key moments where how do you respond to getting your ass handed to you at home for 2 straight weeks, going against a better team on the road? So some of the ways we look for the Saints to respond, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, honestly, this game and then the trip to Tampa are the last 2 games against really tough teams, because I'm not counting the Falcons.
No.
Even though they have a winning record, I'm not counting them because they looked horrible. That was probably the best part of Sunday. They looked horrible against the Dolphins. I mean, Falcons Twitter has been so entertaining. The best tweet I saw was, the best part about being a Falcons fan is eventually you die. I mean, yeah, that's a hell of a way to look at things. But it was those kind of tweets, man. But yeah, I really, the Falcons game, I still feel like you throw the records out and Cam Jordan rediscovers that fountain of youth to make one more sack on the Falcons. Taysom Hill is the Falcons killer. That's the game where he seems to come back to life. I think Alvin Kamara too. All of them will do that, but the rest of it, it's the Jets, the Dolphins, the Titans, 2 Falcons games, 2 Panthers games. So, we're getting in that home stretch, and this is about the time I thought Shough would take over. This is where you get to see if they can grow and build something and maybe win a couple of games. It might screw up the draft order, but not too much. But you should see some growth like that. So I'm looking forward to that. That's the part. That's how I'm gonna look at these games. So, Bayou Blitz tomorrow night. Rams, Saints are at 3:30 again, because it's a West Coast game, and the trade deadline is Tuesday. So we'll still have a lot of stuff to talk about come next week. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.